Hello all and welcome back to Wendy's Way. We are continuing our journey in food. I'm going to make a video today on something that I've made video for in the past, but it was very early on in my YouTube channel and I wasn't familiar yet with video editing and how to throw things together and, just make it presentable. So I released about 6 months ago several short clips of video on pressure canning potatoes. And so now I'm going to make one, I hope and pray, comprehensive video on canning potatoes. I do it often. We make sure that we keep potatoes in the pantry at all times. When we buy fresh potatoes, we never seem to get them used up. They sit in the pantry until they grow eyes, and because you have to take time to prepare them when you have fresh potatoes, and we just don't take the time. Most everything else in our pantry is a quick fix. So I can the potatoes in my pressure canner. You have to pressure can rather than water bath because they are a low acid food. But once you get it done, you can use them in anything. Today I'm canning potatoes, some great big huge russet potatoes that my dad brought for canning. I sent some of my canned potatoes home with him. He had not done it before himself, even though he's canned a myriad of things. He had never done it with potatoes. He took them home, he drained them and fried them. And he was astounded that they held their shape and their firmness, and the flavor was awesome. And I think it's because I can them with salt, pink Himalayan salt. And so when you cook or can something with salt, you don't taste the salt. It just thoroughly enhances the flavor of the food. And I think when you pressure can something with salt, it really forces the flavor into the food and just kind of puts an exclamation point on it. So once they tried that, fried potatoes being one of their favorite foods, he decided that he would bring me some potatoes in some jars and I could do a batch for him. So pressure canning potatoes. The basic tools that you're going to need, obviously, is a pressure canner. I have a Presto canner. It was about as reasonable as a pressure canner gets. My canner has a gauge on the top of the lid. I'll show that again to you later. It has a weight on top of the lid to keep the pressure in. You will need about a gallon of water. If your canner is the same size as mine, about a gallon of water is what you'll need. Each canner is different, and you should put into your canner the amount of water that it requires, that it asks for. Mine, there's a mark on the inside. It's 2 to 3 inches, and in my machine, that is a gallon of water. I also put in a good splash, maybe a 1/4 cup of white vinegar. That keeps the jars from getting white and cloudy during the canning process, so I don't typically have to wash them after they come out of the canner. You also will need salt. I use pink Himalayan salt that we buy in bulk. And you will need jars. I'm putting Dad's in pint jars because that's what he requested. You'll need the flats and the rings to go with your jars. You won't necessarily need a funnel for these because you're just dropping chunks of potato into the jar. And logically, you'll need potatoes. The bag of potatoes that my dad bought are bigger than any potatoes I've ever seen. Okay, these are hand-picked or hand-selected russet baking potatoes. Seriously, these potatoes are as big as my head. I mean, I don't even think a potato is going to fit in a jar. So anyway, we're going to cut them up into bite-sized pieces. Not going to peel them. Just going to scrub them and move on from there. All right, those are my tools. I also will use a jar lifter so that when the jars are done to be lifted out of the canner, we have a tool for that. So those are the tools. I'm going to get out my Rata knives and my cutting board, and I'm going to start chopping up these potatoes, and I'll be back with you shortly. All right, we are back at it in our pressure canning potatoes. I have washed and cut potatoes into bite-sized pieces, and I have filled 16 pint jars, which is what fits into my canner. I can stack them. I can put 8 on each layer. I do have a flat tray that came with my canner that'll sit in the bottom, but the jars I stack directly on top of one another. Now, one thing, this is the canning tool that I was telling you about to lift them out of the canner. Also, I forgot to tell you that you will need hot water or boiling water. I have put my gallon of water into the canner. I put about a 1/4 cup of white vinegar. I've turned the burner on, it's on low. I have heated my tea kettle with hot water, and I'll probably have to do it again before I get my canner full. I think I can probably only top maybe half of my jars with the boiling water that's in my tea kettle. And I'm just about to throw the salt on. Another step that I failed to mention is that after I get the potatoes and the salt and the hot water in the jars, then I will wet a paper towel with the white vinegar, and I will wipe the rim of each jar just to make sure it's clean, to make sure that rubberized flat is going to make good contact and we're going to get a good seal. I remember now that the flats and the rings are something I haven't brought out to my table, but we're going to go ahead and put salt and water, and then I'll move on to the next step. All right, instead of cutting, cut and start again. You know me, I just like to grab my old camera and manhandle it. Never claimed to be a professional photographer, just a YouTube content creator. And it's just as easy as a 1/2 teaspoon of salt per jar. I put in a 1/2 teaspoon on pints and a full teaspoon on quarts. And I do believe this makes all the difference in the world. Everything that I can, all the vegetables and the meats, I put in salt. Pink Himalayan salt is what I choose. You can put in any kind of salt you like. I buy this in bulk through Amazon, like everything else. So, my salt is in. I'm going to grab my tea kettle and see how far it'll go. I have filled the jars with potatoes. When it was half full, a little over half full, I grabbed it and tamped it down firmly on the base of my hand to help the potatoes settle, so that I could fit as many potatoes as possible in each jar. Because if you're going to can, you might as well get as much in each container as possible. I bring them up. You know, they suggest you stop at the line. I bring them up a little bit over. You know, they're going to cook up. They're going to absorb that water, and they're going to get a little bit softer than they are now. So, I want as many potatoes as I can. They have never come out not cooked. They have never failed to seal. I have canned dozens and dozens and probably hundreds of jars in my pressure canner, meat and vegetables, and I have yet to have one jar fail to seal and hold a seal until we have consumed it when I put it through the pressure canner. This is blowing my little mind. I won't need a full tea kettle for the rest. Anyway, you just bring the water up so it's a little over that line. You know, it doesn't have to cover the potatoes because they're gonna boil and cook and cook and boil in these jars. Okay, I'm gonna refill my tea kettle. I'm gonna go and get my flats and my rings, and I'll be back and we'll carry on. Okay, I went and got all the flats and the rings that I needed, and I have heated more water in the kettle. So we're gonna finish this process. Remember, you don't have to completely cover the potatoes. Just bring the water up at least to the line, if not a little bit over. They'll cook. And you can put the salt in the bottom of the jar if you know how many you're going to do. You can put it on top as I did. It really doesn't matter. Because right now you're melting it down through, or it'll, you know, cook up from the bottom. So, okay. We now put our boiling water on. We are going to wipe the lids, whoopsie, with our vinegar rag. Okay, place the ring. I mean the flat on the lid. Okay, you take it until it stops and then give it one more slightly firm tug, finger tight. Finger tight. All right, now we'll put them in the canner and move on from there. Our canner is full. As you can see, I hope, there are 2 layers of wide mouth pint jars. I have 16 jars in total in my canner, only 1 gallon of water in the bottom with about a 1/4 cup of white vinegar. It's been sitting here heating up, and now it is full. I'm gonna put on, just try and do that with one hand. I'm gonna put on my lid. I have checked the gasket on my lid to make sure that it's in good shape. It's a rubber gasket. All right, we sealed it this way. Sealed both sides. Yes, my lid has some water stains on it. I use and use and use this Presto. It is just simply awesome. All right, now we're gonna crank it up. And I'm going to crank it up and keep an eye on it until steam rises from this spout. I'll turn that light off so it's easier to see from over at the other table where I'm going to be steam blocking some crochet squares. Steaming on both sides of the room today to get stuff done. I love it. All right, so this is the spout that steam will rise from. When I have good, hard, consistent steam for 10 minutes, then, where did it go? It's over here. Then I'll take my weight and I'll set it on top of there. After I've done that, I will keep an eye on my gauge this canner at my level above sea level, which I want to say is 1135. Not positive, but look it up for your area. Your canner will tell you for your area what pressure you need to take it up to. Mine is 11 pounds. When I get this canner up to 11 pounds of pressure with that lid plugged, when I put the lid on, oh, and this spout also will pop up when I've put the weight on. This will pop up and contain the pressure. I get it up to 11 pounds, then I set my timer. And I am going to can these pints of potatoes at 11 pounds of pressure for 35 minutes. I believe it's 45 if they're quarts. I will double check that. But I will keep an eye on it because you do have to, well, you have to watch it. You have to babysit a pressure canner to make sure that your pressure doesn't get carried away with you, because it will fluctuate. I may even slide it back to a smaller burner, because at times, depending on what's in the canner, even when I have this front burner on its lowest setting, my pressure will go above the 11 pounds that I need. So I'll have to carefully move it to a smaller burner. Not recommended. I would never suggest that anyone move a full canner that's under pressure. That is simply something that I do and that I am comfortable with. But please don't ever do that. That sounds like a parent, doesn't it? Do as I say and not as I do. All right. Well, I'm going to get over there and start steam blocking some squares, and I'll keep an eye on it, and I'll come back in a jiff. Just want to give you a quick peek at what the canner looks like when it's in full production. Basically, you can probably hear the hissing sound coming. It's kind of a spitting, hissing sound. It comes from the base of the weight. Sometimes it blows bubbles, and that's why you see all the spatter stains on the lid of the canner. But you can see that the pressure spout is up, and that is containing the pressure within the canner itself. You can see that the pressure gauge is sitting at 11 pounds, and I've been babysitting that now. Well, let's see, for about 32 minutes, because on my timer I have 3 minutes and 17 seconds remaining. And when my timer goes off, I will simply turn the burner off and leave the canner alone until the pressure naturally drops down to 0. And after that happens, the pressure valve here, when it releases enough air and enough pressure, it will drop. And when you hear that, you know, it makes a clear little tink sound. If you're in the house, you can hear it. You want to give it a few more minutes, and then you can pull the weight off. And, you know, let it set a few minutes after that at least. And then you can open it up. And if you want to pull them out right away, that's okay. Just be very careful. But if you can hear them still hissing or rattling a lot, the jars inside, then give them a little more time and let them rest a little bit longer. I'll come back when we've turned the burner off, when the gauge has naturally dropped back down and the pressure valve has dropped, and I'll open it up and let you see and hear what it looks like then. Catch you in a few minutes. You can probably hear the hissing and fizzing. I went to grab one of the jars and pull it out of the canner, and it started hissing like, I won't do it again. Okay. Basically, I'm going to let them sit another 10 minutes or so before I pull them out. They're all done. Ready to go. Okay. All 16 jars canned and done. Pressure drop. We waited They hissed at me. I waited a little longer. Now they're sitting here on the counter. I don't know if you can see it. Yeah, right there. Still boiling. They'll be bubbling and boiling for quite a while now. So we let them sit basically overnight before you do anything with them. And then tomorrow, I will make sure that they have all sealed. And once I do that, I'm going to go ahead and remove the rings and write on them the date. It's obvious what they are. You can see that through the jar, so I don't need to do that. But I'll put the date on that I canned them. And you remove the ring so that if there are any issues, if any bacteria or anything has gotten inside the jar that makes it go bad, when you have it stored, you don't want the lid on there holding it closed. You don't want the ring on there holding the lid down. If something goes wrong, you want the lid to be able to pop, and that way it can breathe and not make a big mess. If you still have the ring on there so that the lid can't pop, if you have an issue, the jar will explode. So, primary reason is so if anything goes wrong, the lid can just pop up. And second, I'm sending these to someone else's house, and they're going to be single use. They're not going to be putting the jar back in the fridge after they open it. So that way my rings will be here, and they just have to remember to bring back the jars. Anyway, I can hear them quietly sealing as I talk. That is how you pressure can potatoes. If you have any questions, if you've done it another way and want to share that with me, please comment below the video. We always appreciate it if you like and subscribe and share. Thank you so much for joining us today. Have a beautiful day.